Welcome to the Germinate podcast, where agriculture, business, and innovation take root and thrive. I'm Joe Sampson, and with nearly 2 decades of experience in agricultural equipment and scaling businesses, I'm here to bring you actionable insights, inspiring stories, and strategic advice. Whether you're an industry veteran or just starting out, this podcast is your guide to cultivating ideas, expanding your knowledge, and growing your venture. So let's get started and germinate your path to success. How many networking groups have you joined that meet a couple of times a year and fizzle out? I know a lot of us have. That is why we are creating the Momentum Networking Group. It's going to be led by myself and Mr. Jeremy Kredicke of Syngenta's digital strategy team. Our monthly virtual sessions are going to bring guest experts to help you grow and drive results to your company. Connect, learn, and build momentum together. That is the exact idea of the Momentum Networking Group. Sign up today at embosales.com/events. That's www.embosales.com/events. We are back for another episode of the Germinate podcast. Today we've got Cor on our show. He and I have known each other for, I'm going to say, the better part of 10 years or so. We've served on the Farm Equipment Manufacturers Board together. And I remember one conversation we had at a dinner there, and we talked for, it seemed like, a couple hours. And I'm like, this would make for a great episode. So welcome aboard, Mr. Cor Lauder.
Yes,
sorry.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
So tell everybody about you. You work for a company, or you worked for a company, because that's some breaking news maybe a little bit today as well, but you worked for Walinga. So tell everybody about you, a nutshell on who you are and your story.
People who know me will laugh at that nutshell comment because when it comes to talking about our business, our company, it is something that I guess is pretty normal, but pretty passionate about. I've been with the company, with Walinga Inc. for full-time on the payroll for 48 years. I signed off the payroll on July 31st of this year. So I've been enjoying a bit of a different stage of life, if you will, and yet still keeping very, very busy with a lot of activities, supporting some of the team yet back at the office, both here in town and some of our third generation team at some of our different locations. My tenure at Walinga probably goes back a little farther than that. Since I was 7 years old, I was in the shop sweeping floors for my dad at night, because our head office and main manufacturing plants outside of Guelph, Ontario, and when I was 7, my dad built a home right beside the plant, and so I spent a lot of time in the plant, helping out with different things at a very young age, after school, in the evenings, so on, eventually moving product around, getting parts into areas for the different workstations for the morning type of thing, where my dad would want equipment in certain workstations, or a truck moved into a bay for the team in the morning. That kind of thing. So, it goes back 55-ish years or so.
That's crazy, man. That's a long time.
58 years or so.
And you said you've been there 48 years. So we have a lot of family-owned businesses on here, and this one's probably a little bit unique. Your dad builds a house next to the plant. I mean, it's more like an extension of your childhood home, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah. It tended to be. And it was at that time, so that was in 67. And I think just before that, my uncle built a house beside the plant as well. My dad and my uncle were partners in the business. So two of us families who are now still part of the second generation of the business grew up together beside the plant, and many of us spent many hours working there. If you want to take it a little bit further back, the name Walinga is the roots of that was my grandfather's name. He immigrated from the Netherlands in the early 50s with his wife and two daughters, with the desire of one day learning the English language enough to start his own company and build truck bodies in Canada. He grew up in his dad's wagon making shop in the north of Holland in the 30s, and learned the wagon making trade that at that time, of course, was your typical wooden horse-drawn wagons with the wooden wheels and steel tires and that type of thing. And as the company evolved, they got involved in the more modern equipment, which meant that they were building bodies and decks and everything for motorized truck chassis and that type of thing. And so when they left the Netherlands, he started working for a truck body builder north of Toronto, Ontario, and with the idea that this gentleman would teach him the English language and teach him how to, the craft of building truck bodies in the Canadian and modern way, if you will. And he worked for him for, I think it was maybe a couple years. And then they came to an agreement that he would move an hour west of Toronto to a little town called Fergus, Ontario, which is just north of Guelph, where we also have another plant now as well. And started his own business building truck bodies. That's where the name Walinga, originally it was Walinga Body and Coach at the time. And he started with my uncle, with his son-in-law that married his oldest daughter, and they got going and got the company off the ground. And a few years later, my dad joined them as the next son-in-law.
Yep.
And so my dad and my uncle were partners for many, many years. And probably 35 years ago or so, they invited some of us as what we call second generation, even though that was three generations of people. It was a second generation of leadership into the business, because years before that they had bought their father-in-law out, and so my dad and my uncle were the sole partners at the time. And then when a few of us as second generation moved in, which we ended up starting to call G2, then we gradually were rewarded with increased responsibility in various areas of the company. I was more of a manufacturing guy, so I was on the manufacturing production side. Another one was engineer, so he married one of my uncle's daughters, the oldest daughter. He became a professional engineer and was involved in engineering, and he's still with us to this day as chairman of the company and responsible for international sales, admin, and finance. And then the youngest of the two sons, or of my cousins, he's also a professional engineer and is now CEO of the company. And the other son, the other cousin, leads our U.S. operations out of Wayland, Michigan, near Grand Rapids.
I gotcha.
And then there's a few others that are
I bet.
involved as well. And there was 6 of us as G2. One had retired 2 years before me. He was in charge of our pneumatic conveying systems product line in the Fergus plant. And now, I retired in the end of July, and it was a bit of a bittersweet deal, because I thought I would keep going for a little while longer, but I really felt that it was time to step out of the way and let the next generation, or G3, take it to the next level. They were more than ready, and they were moving along in in a way that showed good leadership and creative ideas, and taking it to the level of the digital automation side of the business. Or when I
Yeah.
got involved in the leadership and production management side of it in the 80s, then I helped to introduce a lot of our CNC automation at the time, CNC fabricating centers, CNC machining, forming, and that type of thing.
Yeah.
And between now and then, we're seeing a lot of growth in that area, of course, with our machining division, which is now based here in Carmen, Manitoba, southern Manitoba, and and the plants in Guelph, Ontario, Fergus, Ontario, and now Welland, Michigan, are increasingly seeing ongoing upgrades in automation, like robotic welding and rotating positioners for welding the tankers together and that type of thing. So
Nice. Yeah, my son, who's just gotten into golf, he just decided to go out for the golf team this year. He's 15 years old, and he could play golf literally every hour of every day. And so I've been trying to, help him out, and I'm by no means a good golfer, but I've been helping him out. But the reason I bring this up is because he's 15 years old and he could play 36 holes of golf a day. I just can't do that anymore. I can't keep up with him. And I think that relates well in the business world. In time you start to understand the next generation is just outpacing you, right? They have these awesome ideas. They have all these things. You took it to the level you could take it to, and then now they're taking it to your point, the next level. And
mm,
talk about that just when okay, I can't keep up with you anymore. You go do your thing. It's time for you to shine. Talk about that, and it's bittersweet. It's tough. It's hard to swallow because none of us want to get to that level, but it happens, right?
well, helping him take his golf to the next level, maybe not a bad gig either, but
It's not, except for my back can't handle it, man. I can't keep my shoulders, my leg. I'm like, yesterday I fought. He had a golf meet. I walked around with him for 18 holes, and I'm like, dude, you're carrying your bag and I'm walking doing nothing. I'm freaking tired. And he's like, I want to go play again. And okay, well, it's a reason why we have kids young, right?
yeah. Well, I look out my front window here and look at the fourth fairway calling me over.
Let's
Um,
go. Nice.
I said to Janine this morning, I said that we really need to get out for some golf yet. But we had just got back from a vacation, so we're trying to get our feet back on the ground here.
Nice.
But yeah, we've treasured that game in the last 15 years ago or so, I guess, where she's got into it as well, and try to get out as much as we can. And it's just a way to get that little bit of a break from your day-to-day busyness. But to get back to your question about how do you pass it on, it's kind of it's a natural thing. It's an organic thing, and I kind of look at it the way my dad uh, uh, and my uncle passed the torch or increased responsibilities over to me. Some of it was their encouragement and assistance. Hey, we want you to take this new role or this new responsibility, and and you know sometimes they would give me their tips on the direction that they're looking for or the goals that they have. But in other moments, they would, I guess, have that faith and trust in myself and the others that hey, you know exactly where you need to go, run with it. And that's been a real blessing, and that's what we've tried to do with G3 as well, because a lot of times they're telling us where they want to go and what they want to do, and in some cases over the years you would have said, okay, that's a great idea, let's just draw back a bit, let's give this some careful thought, are we ready for that? Or, is that really the right strategy or so? Um, and I just look back at my time in 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 that stage, and particularly I would have to go back to the early to mid '80s, and then as I worked on my dad and my uncle to, well, let's start investing in CNC technologies and so on. We would go to trade shows. We go to the IMTS in Chicago every 2 years. We would go to the trade shows in Toronto and in other cities, depending on what manufacturing technology show was on. And I would be pointing out certain, automation or CNC machines and say, oh, that'd be
That'd be
beautiful to have
awesome.
in our
Yeah.
shop. And say, yeah, well, my dad or my uncle would say, yeah, let's keep dreaming, maybe
Yeah.
someday.
Yep. Yep.
And
Exactly.
that's how it evolved. And I remember walking through the machine tool show CMTS in Toronto. This would have been the fall of '87, and we had to go see a particular machine tool dealer because we were looking for a boring mill at the time, and so we had to meet the sales rep who had sold us machines for the previous 20 some years already. And he was going to introduce us to this new boring mill that they were going to have exhibiting at the show. And as we were walking down the aisleways, we were getting close to their booth, and we had to meet him at the Toshiba booth. And I saw this beautiful machining center sitting there, and I said to my uncle, I said, well, or actually, what he said to me first, he said, well, maybe we should just buy that thing. I said, well, that would be a dream. And and so they explained that machine to us a bit, but then we went and looked at the boring mill, and we did a bunch of other stuff. But long story short, by that Christmas, we bought that very demo machine, and that machine served us for I think it was 27 years, and did phenomenal work to as a leading edge into that area of transition or automation within our company. And and that's what I keep stressing to G3 as well. You got to keep dreaming. You got to keep thinking of, increased robotics, cobots, 3D printing. Uh, well, they're big on AI right now, of course. That's a whole different world. But as as things continue to evolve, we see that transition is happening. I was at the plant in Carmen here on Monday, and I met our current plant manager there, him and his operations manager, who also runs the Fergus, Ontario plant. They were walking outside, and so when they saw me, we got chatting, and they were explaining you know, how their trip to FABTECH went, for instance. And FABTECH is very, very large,
I was at that
metal
show this year. Yeah.
fabrication show, and I remember going to that show way, way back, and just the level of opportunity that comes out of shows like that has been amazing, and we rely quite heavily on those kinds of shows to help solidify some of the ideas and the dreams that we have to carry it to the next level. And I'm thankful that these guys are well engaged into that as well, because it really helps them to, yeah, it's easy to see different things now digitally and in brochures and whatnot, but to be able to go out there and touch and feel the iron and see what it'll do for you and compare from company to company in the same
Yeah.
space and in the same day or two is invaluable as far as how you continue to grow and build your company and continually innovate in being able to meet the not only competitive needs but also the profitability and the leading edge manufacturing processes, quality standards you want to achieve, and that type of thing.
Yeah.
Is all very, very important.
Oh, 100%. And that's why FabTech is if no one's been to that show, by the way, you should go because it not only do they have the latest and greatest technology, but everything's on display. They have presses, they have CNCs, they have coil feeders. They have, I mean, you name it, and it's there. And you talked about AI a little bit. The world is changing so fast right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not keeping up with it, specifically on the manufacturing side of things, I have a feeling you're going to get swallowed up here in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years because it's moving at a pace that it's almost impossible to keep up with. So staying in tune with those types of shows, I think, is a good lesson that a lot of people can learn. And you know, sort of like how you learned what a CNC was, and your generation before you was like, sorry, that's never going to happen. Keep dreaming, keep dreaming, young one. And now they're looking at these things, going, we need to adapt with robotics and automation and AI and all the things getting thrown at them because labor is challenging, and it's probably going to be challenging for a while. And I don't know what it's like in Canada. I'm guessing it's very, very similar to the US. Is
Yeah,
that?
oh, very much the same. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Skilled trades is a challenge, and you're you're constantly creating new ways to generate that interest, both through career days and workshops with the local high schools, colleges, trade associations. I'm fairly actively involved with CME, which is Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters, and through our Southern Manitoba Consortium group here too, that we, which is like a peer group of about 10 companies, that you spend a lot of time working together to establish opportunities for recruitment and for training, and
Mm-hmm.
even if it means you've got to set up your own in-house welder training programs. We've done that as a company. Many of our colleagues have done that, where they, aside from the trade colleges, uh, set up your own, say, welding 101 programs, where you can bring a fresh person in and at least introduce them to welding, introduce them to the basics of the process of metals and of welding technologies and that type of thing, and get them to start welding. And
Mm-hmm.
then as they're evolved into it, they're able to eventually, and they show an interest, you can eventually get them engaged in apprenticeship programs and that type of thing that allow them to build a more detailed understanding of welding or of other skills that are required in manufacturing today.
Yeah, and
And
just
and if you bring that interest in of that manufacturing today is not grandpa's um, um, country welding shop. It's bright, it's innovative, it's technology, it's computers. It's almost as if you can't run your phone or you can't run a computer, chances are you're going to have a hard time running that welding machine or that CNC brake or that CNC machining center, because you don't understand the digital aspect of it.
yeah, yeah. They
Yeah,
had a laser welder set up at FabTech in Chicago,
yeah,
and
beautiful.
it was super cool. But it was funny. Some of the old school guys that would come. I mean, you could demo, you could try, you could weld a little piece. Some of the old school guys that are used to welding the old fashioned way had a hard time with it. Be like some of the new kids that would roll up in there. It was impressive the way they could run that machine. That was just a demo at a show like that, but that's a super good example on how, yeah, welding is not, to your point, it's not your grandpa's welding shop anymore.
Well, and I it was exciting for me. A few months ago, we did a CME tour of a number of plants around Winnipeg, and with our consortium group, and one of them was visiting a welding supplier who had a laser welding system set up where they were doing demos for companies and doing basically doing the turnkey setups for systems into some of their customers. And I had the opportunity to do some laser welding, and it was exciting because it really took me back, essentially, if you want to just call it in simple terms, 3 technologies in my career. Because when I started welding in the late 70s, um, our shop was virtually all arc welding, and all the senior uh, welders and fabricators on our shop floor, well, that's how they grew up. They grew up with, welding with an arc, and then one day in the late 70s, a welding supplier came in and talked to my dad, who was running the plant, and said, "I've got this new technology here. Would you like to try it? You don't need, it welds clean. It doesn't have any flux on it. It just welds with a shielding gas." And well, that was totally foreign to him. And he said, "Well, my dad was a pretty progressive guy." And he said, we'll take a look at it." And he brought it into the workstation I was in, and I was with a gentleman who was an absolute craftsman when it came to welding and fabrication and so on, and very particular about his work. But he looked at that machine. He says, "No," he says, "that'll never do what I can do with my arc welder." And so he didn't want to try it. And I said to my dad, well, I was the young kid standing there. And I said, "Oh, I'd love to
You're
try
like, let's
that."
go. Yeah. Yeah.
And my mentor at the time, he was hesitant to let me weld on the same truck body that we were building, where he was welding with an arc welder and I would be welding with a MIG. He says, "That's not going to look right. And it's not going to be the same kind of weld," and yada, yada. But eventually, we got the thing in there. We demoed it, and needless to say, we bought that unit. And there might be 1 or 2 arc welders sitting around under a bench somewhere in our plant. And I know we have one still in Carmen here that we use with Nyrod, so we use it for doing cast iron repairs or something like that.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
But
Sort of sloppy
you know,
work, that stuff. Nobody,
yeah,
yeah, just get it done. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So then, with eventually the whole operation evolved into MIG welding, and then as we grew into from building steel wood truck bodies to aluminum truck bodies, then of course we transitioned into aluminum MIG welding and that type of thing. And now you have some TIG welding, and we're dabbling in laser right now, but with laser, it's a different game as far as the safety aspect of it and protections and so on. But when we did that little laser welding demo, I was like a giddy kid again, and I asked the guy, "Can I take this coupon home with me? Because I still have my original coupon that I made in 1980 when I got my all position MIG welding ticket,
Is that right?
and I
Nice.
still have the sample that I had sitting on my shelf in my office that I would show young aspiring welders over the years. This is how I got my ticket." Because one of them came in the other day all proud because he had the old coupon that they had bent into a U, right, to
Yep. Yep.
do the testing and everything. And he was all excited. He wanted to show me that he got his red seal and so on. I said, "That's kind of cool. They still do it the same way they did in 1980. And so I showed him one that I did because I welded 380 on it. So I did in March 1980.
Nice.
And he says,
Nice.
"Oh, wow." He says, "That's cool."
That is cool. I love it.
And now moving into that different technology, it's a whole different
It's
world.
a whole different world. It's kind of like when I talk to my kids about like cassette tapes or CDs. They're like, well, it's a foreign concept. They don't have no idea what that even is. And similar to that in the manufacturing space, when
Yeah,
laser welders are definitely going to be the thing of the future. And
yeah,
um, what's going to happen in the next 20 years, Core? My gosh, who knows? Who knows? Like I said, the world's moving in a fast pace, and uh, it's exciting too. It's super exciting. It needs to happen. It's just a
yeah,
matter of what's going to take over and what's going to be that archaic compact disc or cassette tape of the past, you know. Hey, folks, let's pause the podcast for a second to talk about one of the companies making the Germinate podcast possible. Want to give a huge thanks to GBGI. Here's Mark Adams.
Thanks, Joe. At our shop in Chardon, Ohio, every part we build is made with precision. From the CNC machining to the final inspection, we don't rush because we know your customers can't afford failure. If you're a dealer or OEM who wants reliability built in, give us a look. GBGI, built to spec, built to last. Learn more at gbgiusa.com. GBGI, grow with us.
Talk about the Canadian, you know, being a Canadian business. And you know, I know you're kind of on the way out. Your last day was July, and I want to talk about your retirement as well and what that's like. But being a business from Canada and navigating specifically the last couple of years, but you know, the last year of these tariffs and because what percentage of your business is in Canada versus you know, outside of Canada?
There's a bit of a split between Canadian, U.S. or North American, and then international. I would have to verify some of the numbers yet, but Canadian is still probably about 40% of our business.
Sure.
But that is gradually that is changing all the time as our U.S., Mexico, and international business continues to grow.
As you keep expanding, yeah.
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 But so, you know, there's obviously a lot of cross-border activity, not only for raw material and components, but also for finished goods.
Yeah.
And that's definitely had an impact on us. And of course, tariffs got lots of publicity over since January, essentially. And
Yep.
but we've always been paying duties and tariffs, you know, as long as we can all remember. It's just got a lot more popular, or a lot more public, and a lot more aggressive, if you will.
And maybe it wasn't called a tariff then. It might have been called you know, an exchange rate or VAT tax or whatever you wanted to call it. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got your duties and that type of thing. And but of course, it's pushed all of us to become that much more diligent on where our raw materials, where our supply chain is, and looking at other options, including looking at more Canadian or other offshore options that minimize the tariff impact. But our product goes both ways across the border, finished goods going across and going south, and raw
Whole
material
goods going out the door.
components.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And so the timing of the expansion of our Wayland, Michigan plant was originally intended to help us increase our throughput of our feed trailers, because the lead time on our feed trailers is anywhere from the 2 to 3 years, depending on the model of unit that you're buying.
Oh, wow. Really? Okay. Yeah.
You know, and so the more complex, more sophisticated units can be up to 3 years lead time. The more simplified, standardized units can be 2 years. Sometimes you can get one a little quicker than that. But so for years, we had been looking at ways to increase our production capacity to meet this continued growing demand and the continued loyalty of our customers in
I
buying
blame
our
that on
products.
Amazon, by the way. The Amazon mindset now. We order something and it comes on your porch, and nowadays sometimes the same day, and it's no different. And it's changing the way we all think about lead times. You know,
Yeah.
before it was, if you want a quality part, you got to wait for it, and now it's like, I want a quality part and I don't want to wait for it. So you got to make moves like you guys did in Michigan. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought there, but yeah, it's the
No,
Amazon.
yeah. Oh, yeah. But what we um, we had been working on potentially expanding our Michigan facility for quite a number of years, and every so often it got put on hold because of economic conditions. When Trump got in the first time, then we paused it because we basically called it the Trump effect. We wanted to see where things were going to go, and we didn't want to make too many high intensity capital investments if things were not going to go as we deemed it should based on that investment level and so on. And then there were other things, including COVID and everything, that got in the way. And then last year we went ahead with the expansion, completed a 36,000 square foot expansion with three new trailer lines in this plant to build an extra 3 to 4 trailers a week out of that facility. And that went online January 4th or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And,
Of
for the
this year?
purpose, yeah,
Okay, wow.
for the purpose of increasing our throughput. And then, of course,
The tariffs.
a few days later, a new administration was elected, and that's quickly created another reason why it was beneficial to be building as much as we can in the U.S. and instead of having components coming across the border and then back again as a finished product, we could drop ship the raw materials and components in Michigan, build the units there, and ship them out. And that didn't cure it all because there were still certain aspects of the unit that still had to be built in our Guelph or Fergus plant and then shipped down there. Even with the whole tariff issues, our supply chain strategy was, what are our options? Can we get other manufacturers to build, say, our trailer frames or bogies or auger components or whatever, build them down there so that we don't have to worry about the tariffs. But anytime we sent special assemblies to potential suppliers down there, it was still more cost effective for us to build it ourselves, pay the tariffs, pay the increased costs, and ship it down there. Then we still had control over it. We could still keep our other plants busy, and still got, we still got dinged with, with extra manufacturing costs as a result. But it was something that we, like many companies, could work through, and including somewhat partnerships with our supply chain, our distributors, our customers in relation to sharing the burden of that cost, because you couldn't easily just pass the entire extra cost on to the customer. At the same time, we couldn't swallow it all either, because in the transportation equipment industry, it's very well known, whether you talk to the big guys like Wabash or Great Dane or the guys that build thousands and thousands of trailers a year, the margins on building over the highway trailers is slim single-digit numbers, and there's just no room to swallow an extra $5,000 or $10,000 on a trailer.
Yeah. 5 or 10 or 20 or 25% in a tariff cost. Yeah, which yeah, it definitely hurts a lot of businesses. And yeah, that's the thing about, I guess, me speaking from a U.S. citizen. I think the tariff talk is, there's still talk about it in the U.S., but a lot of people are like, it sort of is what it is, and we're in this wait and see game on whether or not it's going to work, because the intended consequence of the tariff is that it's going to bring some U.S. manufacturing back to the U.S. That's a good thing. That's a good thing for our country. The bad thing is we're a global society now. We all do business internationally. Everybody does business with one another. And so how do you balance those things out? So I guess the question to you is, what can Canadian policymakers do to sort of counteract it? Do they have countermeasures there? Do you wish they had more? Is there criticism there? Is there things that you think that you wish they could be done? I don't want to get you in trouble, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, what what do you think is there a right answer to that on how a country like Canada answers this tariff talk? What what do you think they should do versus what they are doing?
Well, of course, they've worked hard at it to try to counter it, but uh, every time say the Canadian government tries to counter a U.S. tariff, U.S. it's kind of a
Yeah, ping pong
kind of,
effect. Yeah,
kind of a
yeah,
ping pong or a tennis
yeah,
effect
yeah.
where you're going to do that. Okay, that's
We're gonna
fine.
do
We'll add
this.
another few points to it, and so it's it's kicking sand around the sandbox, and once in a while it gets kicked into the other guy's eyes, and then he backs off for a while because he needs to regroup and think, okay, how am I going to handle this, and yeah, without getting political about it, it's been a challenge for the Canadian government to deal with some of these things. And there was some big talk before the election, the Canadian election as well, in relation to how they were going to deal with it. But so far, in general, we haven't been overly happy as industry, overly happy with how it's all gone. And of course, we're constantly having meetings with them through our our local authorities and so on, and
Sure.
through our industry associations like CME has worked a lot on it, AMC, which is Ag Manufacturers of Canada, which I'm still on that board as well, and we continue to do a lot of advocacy to try to deal with a lot of these things, and same as with FEMA in the U.S. Farm Equipment Manufacturers Association, and everybody. That's the purpose of collaboration, and that's the power of association as well, right?
Yeah.
Including simple mediums like this, where people are sharing of ideas and trying to affect change and so on. And
Yeah, and well, I think it helps to know that it affects real businesses out there too. We sometimes broaden things out and said, "Oh, the agricultural industry or the construction industry or the steel industry." Behind each one of those industries is a company name and personnel with inside that company that are getting affected every day by I love the analogy you said by we're kind of in a sandbox kicking sand in each other's eyes, and you got to stop and it takes a while to rub that out and clear your eyes out and then be like, well, okay, wait a minute. How do we react? What's the way to do this? And but there's real companies behind this, and that's maybe what's lost in the fold instead of just giant industries that are getting affected. That's true, but two things can be true at once. That's true, and so can a company like Walinga get affected, and all the suppliers that supply you, and all on down the chain. And there's real names and real faces behind these businesses.
oh, 100%. And this whole uh, mission of the current U.S. administration to bring America back, make America great again, bring manufacturing back into America. In a lot of respects, it's working even within our company. Even though like many others, like the Toyotas of the world and so on, they don't just decide 2 months after a mandate has been put in place that they're going to spend $4 billion in Louisiana or wherever and build a new plant.
No,
And they're going
that's
to
been in
start
the
building it.
works.
They're
Yeah.
going to start building it next month. Well, it takes time. I mean, just a small company like us, those ideas have been in the works for years and years and years. It's just that sometimes things like this are motivation to keep it going, to give us further confidence that yes, timing is right. Just like I talked about earlier, about all the reasons why we held off those expansions in the years past with
Just too much uncertainty. Yeah, it was.
with the uncertainties,
Yeah,
and now with what our plans are in Northwest Iowa, where we've already bought land for this expansion. Our facilities there are too small to meet the current and growing needs, and we want to make sure that we're strong and ready as we continue to grow our markets in the Midwest and beyond. So then this, particularly the G3 group, along with the support of G2 and the board and executive management team and so on, are helping to push these efforts forward and setting real timelines on, okay, when do we want to see this happen, and how are we going to go about getting to that level, even though there's a lot of factors that go into it, including economic uncertainties
yeah,
and or capital planning or otherwise.
yeah. I mean, it is an uncertain world, and I think you nailed it there by saying, the generation that you took over for helped you and supported you. Your generation is now serving as board members, and also, even though you're retired, you're still doing what you can to support and mentor and grow the next generation, or you're calling it G3, and so on and so forth. They will hopefully continue that mentorship and guidance to G4. And, I'd be remorse to say, because I see the sign behind you, that you're a man of God, and how we kind of connected through LinkedIn, I think has been special too. And it holds a dear spot in my heart, Core, when I kind of, I've been, I kind of feel like I have a mission somewhat from God to at least let people be aware of the transition that he's had in my life and my family's life, and that we've had to get on our knees because we don't know anywhere else to go. And you've commented a lot on those posts, so I think that moral and that compass starts with your faith. I'm assuming. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I guess I'm assuming it does. It starts there, and we'll hopefully continue on for generations, not only in business, but just in life, to mentor that next group coming in, right?
Oh, 100%. And our company um, is based on, and the foundation of it is on our service to God and our faith in Jesus Christ, and that's foundational. It's in our vision and mission statement, and it's foundational to everything we do every day. It's all about faith, family, uh, country, and work. And without that, and we see that at different times around in life, with world events or with things that happen around us, with global unrest, and of course, more recently, of course, with what's happened over the last week or two in
Yeah.
relation to
Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA and so on. We were in Spain at the time, at the tail end of a vacation that we were on, and even hearing it over there and seeing some of the things that were going on. Every once in a while in the evening, I'll go back to YouTube and I'll continue watching his memorial service and whatnot. Well, the thing's like 5 or 8 hours long,
Right.
and
Right.
so you just kind of try to watch as much as you can, just to pick out of it um, uh, what is important in this stage of our life within this world, and to see all of these humble folks that run Turning Point, humble folks that were for friends of his, right up to the American leaders.
Uh-huh.
Like these are leaders that go, from secretaries to the president, to the president's
Elon
kids,
Musk was there. Yeah.
all these people. I was listening to some of them speak last night, and I thought this is praise God for
Right.
what is working here, to millions and millions of people, not just the 100,000 or so that were there in person, but speaking from their heart to millions and millions of people, and say, okay, let's not make this another turning point, if you will, to use that term, that we're going to be all excited about Christ and about living a life of faith and so on, and then eventually fall into our humanistic world, if you will, kind of like what happened at 9/11. Right? You don't want that same thing to happen now, and it's all very, very heartfelt, and you're very, very thankful for it, and you hope that it stays, because it's also very, very important for us as businesses, as industry, in how we grow the next generations, not only in our commitment to faith, trust, integrity, and but also to ensure that the staff that we're privileged to employ, that they live the same conviction of purpose. You can't expect that everybody's going to hold the same values or the same strength of faith that you hold, but you hope that eventually they do,
Yeah. They have some foundation behind them.
grab hold of more of that, and they see, we're supposed to be a light in the world. You hope that light is shed on those around you, and that you can make a difference.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you get into, you're the CEO of a company, or you're the next generation that comes in and you're the new owner of the company. You can come across the sizable amount of life-changing type money, and it can become a really evil god. We've seen that, and power can become you get into a position and become an evil god, and that foundation of being that servant type leader that Jesus Christ was and still is today. There's millions of leadership books that we've all read, and there's one that's about being a servant leader. And we've seemed to ignored that book. And I think this is that turning point, to use the pun, that we can maybe revive ourselves back into, wow, that's a really good foundational way to live. Maybe we should try that again. And you're right. The service that Charlie Kirk had showed some light onto some pretty evil, dark things that have been happening in the world, not just over the last year or two, but probably over the last 30 years, if we're being honest with ourselves. And I turned that on right during Brandon Lake's gratitude song. I don't know if you've seen a clip of that, but if you haven't, I'll send it to you. Um, it's a fantastic song, and it talks about, there's a line in that song that says, "Come on, my soul, don't you get shy on me. You've got a lion inside of your lungs, so get up and praise the Lord." And I love that line because it's like we've been shy forever with our
Yep.
faith, and it's so loud, it can be so boisterous. So get up, don't you get shy on me. Let's go. You got a lion in there, let her rip. And we heard that in our living room, my wife and my daughter and my son and I, and we just stopped, and all of us just started crying. I mean, it was so moving and so
Mm.
powerful, and that's God. I mean, that is a moment that I'll never forget. And the entire audience, I'm sure whoever watches it will have the same
Good.
mentality. And boy, what a revival chance in our world to change, and to not just in our personal lives, but in business. And can you imagine if we're all singing that song together, and
Yep.
on that same tune? It's amazing to me what this moment can do. Let's hope it does do what you say it's gonna hopefully can do, and not just become a little moment in time.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, were we too easily tuck our faith into our pocket, and yet when we do let that light shine, it's amazing how many people acknowledge it and show thankfulness for that. I've had that when I've had to say grace at whether it's an AMC event or another event, and they've asked, they say, hey, can you say grace for the meal or so? And I said, sure, I don't mind doing that. And well, I would pray like I normally do every day at the dinner table or otherwise, and then people would come up to me afterwards and say, I really appreciated that. We need to hear that more, and so on and so on. And I did a presentation. I was a keynote for a manufacturing conference about a year ago or so, and in Winnipeg, and I did the story of Walinga and multi-generational business and creativity and innovation and so on, and I had put enough in there that I guess showed the strength of faith in the Christian foundation of our business. That number of people who I had known in industry for years and years came to me, as well as people I'd never seen before, and thanked me for that
Inclusion. Yeah.
that inclusion without,
Being in your face and just,
exactly.
yeah. No, I know what you mean.
That's,
Yeah.
and that's humbling. And I had it this week actually too. I'm head of council for our municipality here, so I'm a local government. I'm the REO of our municipality, and that's part of my semi-retirement gig, I guess. But
Nice. Keep yourself busy, right?
um, and they had a grand reopening of a children's playground in town here, and they made it in a memorial park because a mother and 3 of her children were killed by a stepfather about a year ago, and it was, of course, was a major blow to the community here, and so they had a grand reopening, and they had different dignitaries there, including the premier of the province and a number of the different MLAs and minister of families and so on were there, and so they asked the mayor and myself as a reeve and the premier and a few others to speak, and so I just put a little bit in there about faith, hope, and love, and caring for one another, and so on, and there again I was honored and somewhat humbled to have people come up to me afterwards and say, Cor, I'm really glad that you brought faith into this, because it's a tragic situation. At the same time, we know that there's a loving God out there that will carry us through this if we are willing to come to Him. And but it was kind of neat, because then you say, hey, what am I worried about? What am I scared about? Right?
Yeah. Right. What can man do to me? Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and that's what we have to do in our business, and that's what the foundation of our family business is, very much based on our Christian principles. We're part of the Reformed Church, and in Canada it's the Canadian Reformed Church. In the U.S. it'd be URC or United Reformed or Christian Reformed or Protestant Reformed or otherwise, and
Right.
it's got a lot of Dutch roots, right? So
Yep.
and to us that's all very, very important on the importance of faith in Jesus and strong family values and support of the church community, kingdom causes, and so on, and even those who have worked for us for many years that don't share Christian faith or maybe somewhat on the edge, they say to us time and time again. I actually had a note from one of our past employees. He worked for many, many years in our Guelph plant. He was in charge of the paint department, and even though I'd been out of that plant for 29 years because I went from running that plant to running the Carbon Manitoba plant 29 years ago, I always kept in touch with him. And about 2 or 3 years ago, he retired from our business and kind of went to take a new role because he had to move for family reasons out of the area. And anyway, I try to keep my birthday calendar and everything up to date in my computer and my phone, and so I make a habit of sending guys birthday wishes, the anniversary wishes, whatever it might be.
Nice.
And I sent him a note. I says, "Hey Fred, hope all well and best wishes and so on." And he sent a note back thanking me for that, and he says, I still feel, even though I'm gone, I still feel I'm part of the Walinga family, if you will, because I've always been well cared for. I always felt valued, and I always felt that I was part of the family. And to us, that's humbling because it's important to
That's right.
how a person, carries on his life beyond the days in the office and days in the plant, and that we also show that, hey, we might not see each other every day anymore, but we haven't forgotten about you, and that's important.
That's what it's all about, man. That's what starting a family-owned business and, to your words, being a servant business and one that's built on a rock of foundation is all about. And so, yeah, it's super humbling and super. It's a great story, Cor, and you've been a mentor in my life, and I appreciate that. I think you're still going to Vegas, right, for the FEMA convention?
I certainly hope to be there. I'm
Good.
registered.
Good. So I'll see you there and just look forward to our relationship and our network continuing to keep going. And I can't thank you enough for being on this podcast. I mean, this is the first time we got a first time podcast guest here, everybody. So that was awesome, Cor. Appreciate you so much. Tell everybody how to get in touch with Walinga website, if you're on socials, whatever it may be. And yeah, we'll kind of close her up from there.
Yeah, well, if you want to get to know a little bit more about Walinga, you can go to our website at walinga.com, or for that matter, you can pick us up on Instagram, LinkedIn, I think Facebook. I don't do Facebook, but apparently we're well covered there as well.
Nice.
And X, I think a lot of our team are involved there as well. And yeah, through our website and through our Instagram posts, you can see a little bit more about who Walinga is. We've been around since 1954 and continue to grow with our operations in Canada, US, and Australia. Yeah, Lord willing, we will be able to continue to grow into the next few generations. So,
I think you will. You're based on a good foundation, man, and that's
and I think, you talk about those roots. I'll just quickly round off with this because the story's been lingering in my mind when we're talking about our values and so on. And when my grandfather was on the boat in the early 50s with his wife and 2 daughters, and at that time, well, those immigrant ships, the men and the boys all slept in certain bunks on the ship, and the ladies with the younger children were all in other bunks. And this story actually came to me from a gentleman who I met at our church about a year ago, and he came up to me and he says, "You're a son of Case Walinga, right? Or grandson?" And I says, "Yeah, I am." And I says, "How do you know that?" He says, "Oh, I just know your family. I know your mom and so on." And I knew her as a young boy and so on. And then he explained how he had met this gentleman in the same bunk hall or wherever that they were sleeping in, and he was only, I think, 13 or 14 at the time, and he saw that my grandfather he had a little leather satchel sitting kind of under his bunk, and and he was protecting it pretty good. And he says, finally, I got the nerve as a little kid to ask him, what's that leather satchel for? My grandfather told him, that's my tools of the trade that I learned from my dad in Holland, and I'm going to use that to get started with learning the trade in Canada to build a future for my family and for future generations. And I thought that was pretty emotional for me to hear that. And more recently, that leather satchel was recovered, so I got it restored, and I still have some of the original tools that were in that. So that's pretty special and something to treasure. And just from that man with his vision, his faith, and his little bag of tools created what we have now, and in the product in over 60 countries around the world, and employing over 500 people, and along with a dealer network and everything like that. It's pretty amazing.
That's way cool. I
And it's
guarantee it.
all by the grace of God.
Yeah, all by the grace of God. He's smiling down on you right now, my friend. That's really cool. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great story to end on. Cor Lauder with Walinga. That's WALINGA.com if you guys want to check them out. So, Cor, appreciate you. Reach driven leaders with the Germinate podcast. Sponsor our show to align your brand with actionable insights and purposeful growth. Contact us today at embosales.com/podcast. That's www.embosales.com/podcast to partner and inspire our growing audience of professionals. Hey folks, thanks for tuning into the Germinate podcast. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others in the industry. And join me next time as we continue to explore the innovations and strategies shaping the future of agriculture and business. Until then, keep growing, keep innovating, and keep germinating your success.